The fastest way to improve your chess by a huge margin is to properly analyze your own games. In this free masterclass, I'm gonna share with you my very painful loss. I'm gonna walk you through my mistakes so that you can avoid making those in your own games, and I'm gonna teach you incredibly important principles that you must apply in your chess immediately to reach your chess goals faster than you might possibly imagine. It's day number 3 of my Journey to Grandmaster challenge, and before trying to improve my chess as much as possible, I want to really dive into my mistakes and weaknesses for what I'm making wrong in chess. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. So I played this game as black in the German chess Bundesliga. It was incredibly tough for me because it was a completely new opening I played here. So my opponent, Kirill Burdalov, international master, pretty strong one. He played d4 on the first move. I played d5. By the way, I'm using the Chestnut Evo board for the purposes of this analysis. That's the sponsor of today's video, more of that later on. So yeah, I played d5, he played c4, which is the queen's gambit. And I had absolutely no intention to take that pawn because, well, I don't really like the positions arising out of that, so I played the move e6. That is the queen's gambit decline, so we are gonna see the evaluations here. If we need, we can take a look at the moves that people are playing here most often. So I really like using lead chess for my analysis. I mean, chess.com is absolutely fine. The most important thing is that you really analyze the game. That is what matters, and I'm gonna show you what exactly I'm doing to try to understand my mistakes throughout the game and never repeat it again. Because if you just play chess and you don't analyze it at all, you are making the same mistakes or over and over again, and that doesn't make any sense. You are not improving at chess. And if you carefully really analyze and try to understand what caused a certain mistake, what kind of decision-making process was going through your head throughout that mistake before and after, then you can understand what was wrong and, of course, do it the right way next time. Okay, so far so good. My opponent played knight to f3, and I played knight to f6. Now, I was expecting either the move g3, which is going to some Catalan positions, or the move knight to c3, but somehow my opponent played instead the move e3, which is a completely different thing, and I wasn't really prepared for that, so I decided, well, let me try something very solid, something new for me, so it's going to be instructive as well, and, well, yeah, you should experiment at some point if you want to achieve something, because you need to learn different types of positions. I understand that's difficult, and when you just start, you want just to play one opening. That is something you understand very good, and I definitely recommend you always do that. I always recommend it to my students as well. But when you go to a certain very high level where your opponent is preparing for you, so he's coming for the game with some understanding of what you normally play, and then you play the same thing as you always do, then he's very well prepared, and you're risking to play against the computer engine basically up to move 30, and that is not what you want to get in the chess game. So that's why I played here the move c6. I wanted to try something new, but the problem was I had absolutely no experience with this type of positions, and that is what costed me so many problems later on in the game. So let's see. So the purpose of the move e3 is that if you play g3 and go into the Catalan positions, then this pawn on c4 is always hanging, you need to live with it, you basically are sacrificing it with white, and you have some advantages thanks to that. But now, if you play the move e3 instead, then your pawn on c4 is protected. The drawback, though, is that you are blocking your dark square's bishop here on c1. Okay, so I played the move c6, and that is basically known as the semi-Slav defense here, and my opponent plays knight c3 now. Well, everything is protected, he's just developing the pieces. So far so good. You can see that millions and millions of games have been played in this position, so absolutely nothing new at this point. There are different moves for black. I decided to play bishop d6, my opponent played bishop e2, which is, of course, completely possible just to continue the development. Knight b2 d7. I thought somehow it's important for me to control that e5 square so that he cannot play knight e5, followed up by f4, and then he has just a huge pawn center, and that, yeah, I thought maybe it wouldn't be that desirable for me. Okay, he played the move b3. So Of course, when you analyze your games, you need to understand, first of all, it's important that you do it right after you play the game, or at least not more than like a few days afterwards, because otherwise you forget all of the ideas you had during the game, and then it doesn't make that much sense. So ideally, if you play online, for example, you play your rapid game, because Rapid is much better for educational purposes than Blitz games, and then you analyze it immediately afterwards. Of course, you can take advantage of that game review feature on chess.com. There's kind of a lazy analysis, I would say, but it's a good first indication. Like, if you have just a few minutes to analyze the game and not more, then at least do that. That's going to be much better than nothing. But if you really want to dive deeper into what stops your chess growth and, of course, improve your chess as fast as possible, then you really want to analyze your games properly, not just taking a look, okay, the game review on chess.com says I should play, I don't know, bishop b4 here, but really trying to go deeper into that. Why bishop b4 is a good move. I mean, that's just an example. Bishop b4 is a stupid move here. And what to do, why I didn't play it, what kind of ideas I had, why I haven't thought about the right move. We are going to see all of that later on here, because it's very, very important for you to understand how to analyze your games efficiently. Okay, I made the castles, so far so good. The key principles of the opening: you spend just one tempo on one move, I have done it so far, and you fight for the center, I have done that as well, and you make sure your king is secure. So my opponent plays castles as well. Of course, white has a little bit more space here in the center and overall, so I have to solve my problem somehow. First of all, this bishop on c8. That's the only piece that is not developed yet in terms of minor pieces. Minor pieces are the knights and the bishops, and you normally always want to develop it first, and then the major pieces, the queen and the rooks. Okay, b6, bishop goes to b2, and bishop goes to b7. Now, my opponent played bishop d3, and I was pretty confused, because that is actually breaking the golden principle. That is making a second move with the same bishop, and he could have just played it immediately, so I thought, well, it can't be bad for me, right? The position is slightly better for white. It doesn't matter that much. What matters is what kind of plans you have, your opponent has, who has more experience in this type of positions, and so on. So obviously, black wants to somehow get rid of this space problem. To do that, we need to break in the center. Typically, black has two ideas: either e5 or c5. And then this bishop is going to be opened, and in general, pieces would have enough space to be activated. So I started first with queen to e7, because I knew that's a typical move, somehow preparing some e5 or c5 breakthroughs. But then I understood, once my opponent played rook e1, which makes total sense, that somehow my queen is a little bit misplaced here. So I don't know, maybe I should have started with rook e8 instead, because I had here an idea in mind that if I play rook e8, I want to play e5, obviously, no matter what. He plays, yeah, something like rook e1. I take there on c4. That was my variation, at least. Then my problem was that he can take with the bishop, and then I play e5, and then somehow my f7 pawn is not that protected. Yeah, you see that white already has a huge advantage here. After knight g5, I have to spend yet another tempo on defending it. I never thought it that bad, but I also didn't like it as black. That's why I decided not to start with the move rook to e8, but to start with queen to e7, so that in the same variation I would have my rook on f8 and I would never have such a problem. Queen to e7, yeah, that is the position. Okay, rook e1, and here I still decided to go for my plan, which seems to be the wrong one in the first place. So here it's a very important, like, the moment the opening is about to end and middle game is about to start, the most important thing for you is to figure out the right plan for the game. Unfortunately, my plan was far from being the right one. First of all, I lacked experience in this type of positions. I'm gonna probably take a deeper look at this opening, how it works, and then I'm gonna be more prepared. But for now, I thought that taking on c4 and then playing e5 is a good idea. Let's see what the engine says. Yeah, it says you should just play c5. That is, of course, reasonable. I have thought about it for a second, but somehow, I don't know, I wasn't that sure. I wanted really to play the move e5. But the problem is, if you do that immediately, then yeah, you see it's not that great, because in the end of the day, white takes the d5 pawn. That was exactly my problem. Okay, knight takes e5. Of course, you need like to wait a little bit until this engine makes well, proper sense, because depth is amount of moves that engine is calculating for, and you need also to divide it by 2 basically. So 19 depth means that engine calculates for, well, roughly 10 moves. And the problem here is that white is taken on d5, and then I have this isolated pawn at the end of the day. And that is a constant weakness, strategical weakness, that I didn't want to have. Also, my bishop is blocked by this isolated pawn. So that is the type of position I didn't want to get into. That is why, in this position, where it seems like, yeah, it's time for me to take a decision, what do? I decided to take on on c4, and then play the move e5. And that somehow made perfect sense for me, but unfortunately it didn't work that well for me. Yeah, you can see the evaluation is already much better for white. So apparently I have overestimated my position here, because I thought I'm certain in e4, first of all, you need to do something about it. I never want to take on d4, because that would open up the e file and the rook would be very, very strong there. But I thought that I'm gonna just place my rooks in the center. I'm gonna open up the bishop at the right point, and then, yeah, I would just stop the entire initiative white has. Somehow it didn't work. Let's see what happened here. So I played the move e5. Bishop just went back to c2. I thought that's not particularly active. Well, this bishop have made already 3 moves in the opening, whereas I didn't make more than 1 move with any of my pieces. So I thought I should be in a good shape, and the engine says, yeah, it's a completely playable position. I played rook f to e8, and my opponent played h3. And then I thought that is another important point for me in terms of choosing a direction. And once again, I made a mistake. Once again, that's because I had pretty much no experience in this type of positions. So of course I saw the move rook a to d8, and that is the move I would always recommend you make in your game if you don't want to think a lot. Just finish your development, bring all of your pieces. It's active. D file is a perfect one for the rook. But somehow I thought that I need to exchange that dark squares bishop, because I anticipated the position being closed up. Like if you imagine white plays e4, d5, and then the position is completely locked in terms of dark squares. So I thought I should exchange that bishop, and I played bishop to a3. But that turns out to be just not the right idea. You see that white immediately gets a huge advantage here. Well, maybe not huge, but a very comfortable one. My opponent did play queen c1 pretty fast, so apparently, of course, I saw that. I just thought that the resulting position is good for me, and it turns out to be not the case. So I talk here. I thought when I exchange that, and then I close the position here with the move c5, then I should be good to go. Yeah, you see that here it's basically +2 for white. He, of course, played the move d5 very fast as well. And then I was absolutely fine with the position. If you would tell me that it's +2 for white here, I would be so shocked. I would tell you, you don't understand anything in chess, but apparently it's me who doesn't understand anything in chess. But I still thought that it's a very good game to show you to, just make a point how complicated chess is and how little we human, even as strong as international masters, don't understand absolutely anything about chess. How wrong we might be. And of course, in terms of my journey to Grandmaster, it's important for me to understand objectively what I understand in chess, what I don't understand in chess. So this type of positions, for example, is one thing that apparently I understand very, very poorly, because I really thought that's completely fine for black. So why I did that? So I played here rook d8, and my plan was very clear. I wanted to remaneuver my knight through e8 to d6, where on d6 it's going to block this d5 pawn, and they say the knight is a perfect blockator. That is of course true, and it's putting pressure on the c4 pawn, and I thought that c4 is a long-term weakness. I can attack it with the bishop, and you always should protect it as white. And then I thought I'm gonna launch my attack on the queen side, and that is exactly what happened. So I thought I'm following my plan perfectly, and white basically has the only idea to somehow push that a pawn and create a weakness on the queen side. But I thought that's just one weakness, so I'm going to be more than fine to protect it, and then I'm good to go. But that was so far from the truth. You see, it's +2.3. That's just horrible. I mean, that is almost an extra piece. That is so amazing. Tell me please in the comments what you think about this evaluation, whether you would evaluate the position like that. Because like a grandmaster from our team told me that, well, he would say this is better for white. He would also be very surprised with such a huge advantage for white. But he definitely thinks it's better for white. I understand, of course, that white has more space here. I'm not arguing with that, but I thought my position is incredibly solid. So let's see what happens here. After d5, I played rook to d8. My opponent played a4, immediately starting that attack. I thought, okay, I don't care. The pawn on b6 is protected, so I'm gonna just continue my maneuver here. He plays e4, and I play knight to d6. So I have achieved my first goal. That knight is now attacking those pawns. c4 is already under attack, so my opponent plays bishop d3. Overall, I can say I enjoy analyzing the games on the real board because I don't know how it is for you. Share your experience in the comments, please. But for me, I always enjoy analyzing on a real board because it's a completely different type of feeling compared to the online chess. It's because I play all of my tournaments, well, except for Title Tuesday, on the real board, and then analyzing and do my trainings on the real board as well brings a huge difference for me, and I like it a lot. And that's a very good moment for me to say thank you for the sponsor of this video, Chestnut. If you are interested in some Chestnut products like this board, I have made a dedicated video about it, or the Chestnut Air, the most affordable option they have, then feel free to use the link in the description to get a huge discount for those boards, because yeah, I have a very good experience and I can sincerely recommend you take a look at it. Anyway, let's continue here. I played the move knight d6, bishop d3, and here I played bishop a6. I had a very interesting idea in mind. I wanted to just exchange that bishop because look at it, like all of the pawns on the light squares and the chess principles are telling you that if that is the case, you want to exchange the light squares bishop because it's completely stupid. In general, the bishops are not that great when the position is closed, and that is basically the only exception because I always teach you that bishop is stronger than the knight and you should not exchange your bishop for a knight without a very good reason. But I thought that is exactly a very good exception to it, because this bishop has absolutely no prospects, well, apart from attacking this c4 pawn, but the problem is this knight is coming to b5 immediately. And now I would rather take it and exchange my bishop for this knight rather than exchanging this piece on d6, because I thought that knight is just a perfect piece for me, my best piece, I should never exchange it. That's why I took with the bishop. Yeah, the engine seems to agree with that, but he still argues that that is a huge advantage for white. And yeah, I understand that pawn on a7 is a huge weakness. I'm not gonna get rid of it till the end of the game, and that basically cost me so many headache later on in the game. But I thought, okay, I can just protect that pawn 3 times along the 7th rank with my pieces, and I can use the same pieces for the attack. I imagine, for example, like these 2 rooks being on h7 and g7, supporting my attack, and then play h5, g5, g4, and just checkmate my opponent while still protecting that pawn on a7 3 times with my rooks and queen. And my opponent could triple along the a file, but as long as it's protected, I don't care about that, and all of his pieces along the a file are useless. So that was my plan, and I also thought that my opponent has absolutely no ideas. Like, I'm stronger on the king side, I thought so, and he's stronger on the queen side, but there is just one weakness that I can easily protect, well, relatively easily, and then he has nothing to do. And I'm pretty sure my opponent also didn't think that this position is so much better for him. And I'm pretty sure if I would have offered a draw to my opponent somewhere here or a little bit later on in the game, he would agree to it. I mean, at least that's my opinion, my impression, but I just can never offer a draw. It's not in my nature, and sometimes I win because of it, sometimes I lose because of it. That is, unfortunately, this time the later case. So let's see how all of that happened. So knight goes to d6, yeah, that's already that, and I played f6. Well, I want to start remaneuvering my pieces. To do that, I need to protect the e5 pawn first. My opponent starts, yeah, launching that attack along the a file. I thought, okay, go on, I'm completely fine with that, I'm gonna go for my plan. And here, well, I didn't know whether he wants to double or triple on the a file. He decided to play queen a1, maybe because here the queen still puts pressure on the e5 pawn as well as on the a7 pawn. I thought, okay, I don't care about it at all, I'm gonna play rook d7. And then he played rook a6, which for me, it seems very weird because what the rook is doing, it's kind of that example of a hope chess that I recommend you never do it, because basically that's just hoping that I'm gonna blunder the b6 pawn because of the pin. Remember, my rook on a8 is not protected, but that fits my plan again because I just remaneuver my rook all the way to the king side, and I'm okay with protecting that pawn. And then I want to launch my attack and maybe play f5 or play g5. One plan I had here is to play g5, then knight g6, maybe knight f4, and then preparing the move f5 or maybe h5, g4, and just checkmate my opponent. Unfortunately, it didn't work like that, although I was pretty close to that. So let's see. Rook e8, my opponent played h4. That is kind of stopping g5, and yeah, I thought maybe I should have played g5 earlier, but I thought, okay, I can still play g5 here. But then my problem was that he can play probably g5. Yeah, it's already a huge mistake. I didn't understand that at all. Although I didn't like the move h5. And then I cannot continue my attack. If I play g4, he has knight h4. Somehow knight g6 is not there. I thought that's not ideal. So instead of that, I played h5 myself first. By the way, that's the best move. And then I wanted to play g5, so that still my knight is going on, all of the pieces are going on. And look, like I have all of the three major pieces here just ready for the attack. I have my knight ready to jump to g6 as well, and later on to f4 potentially. And I have the knight on d6 that kind of helps as well with f5, with e4, and he has those pieces there. They're not taking part in terms of the kingside attack at all. So I thought I have a good advantage here on this part of the board. But somehow it's still pretty possible for white to deal with all of the threats. So my opponent played g3, which is of course a very useful move. Notice that he has a bishop. I also thought that is a huge strategical advantage for me, because he has a light squares bishops, and all of the pawns here are on the light squares. That is a nightmare for the bishop, because it has absolutely no active ideas. He just has to protect those pawns, and I thought that's just horrible for me. So I went ahead with my attack. I played g5. Yes, on the one hand you can see that it's weakening my king, it's opening it up, but I thought I have so many more pieces here and I want to attack my opponent. Like with this move, I basically say, I don't want to make a draw. I don't want just to passively stay here, go here and there, and waiting for you to agree to a draw. No, that wasn't my intention at all, even though the engine says it's better for white. Instead, I just wanted to attack. I wanted to go all the way forward. So I played the move g5. He took here, and that is, as far as I remember, I briefly took a look with the engine here. That was a mistake, because that somehow really opens up the opportunities for me. That opens up the f file, that gives me more space on the king side to attack. He should have saved those pawns and be okay with me playing g4. Although I also thought he should take, so that he has that king g2, rook h1 idea. That is exactly what happened here. So he played king g2. And here you see that the evaluation position of the position has changed dramatically. Now it's equal, and from a practical point of view, maybe even better for black, because I have those attacking chances, whereas my opponent has to defend. Somehow I misplaced that. I didn't use all of my chances. So I played here knight to h7. Let's see. Knight g6 is the best move, and queen to g7. And knight h7 apparently is not that great. Let's see. Yeah, still fine. Okay. Yeah, but queen f5. I also thought about this sacrifice, or knight xe5, because he's winning two pawns for the knight, because the a7 pawn is going to be lost, like something like that. I have seen that once I have played knight h7, but thank God my opponent didn't see it. Although I don't know what's gonna happen. The computer even thinks that queen takes e5. I was thinking about rook takes a7, but apparently that doesn't work. Okay, because I just exchange and then my attack is probably too strong there. Yeah, might be the case. Although I was worried that those pawns are going to be taken. Let's take a look at that variation. Because, well, hopefully it's also very instructive for you to understand why on earth this position is so complicated. There are already two pawns for white for this for this knight. And also this pawn is about to get lost. I mean, knight c8 is not a move you want to make. Yet, the position is completely winning for black. I mean, e4, that's very risky to take it. What about queen takes? Yeah, you don't take the pawn, exactly. You play knight g4 instead, and apparently the threats are too much. I thought that queen is just taking that, and then f2 pawn is protected. I have like 27 pawns for that extra piece. Why is it losing for white here? Yeah, I can just protect it with the rook. What's the problem? h4, and it's -6, completely winning for black. Yeah. I mean, that's still not obvious for me. Why is it so winning here for black? You play h4. I mean, g3 pawn is protected. There are so many pawns. Of course, yeah, the problem for white is it's pretty slow for those pawns to become really strong. You need to remove that queen and play c5 ideally, but you don't have a good square for the queen to go because you would like to have it still there. And maybe black wants to take on g3 and then play queen h8 and go there with checkmate ideas. Maybe that is the idea. So for example, if I remove my queen somewhere, what do? No, you play h3 or knight x f2. Knight x f2 and queen g3. Yeah, that seems to be very, very dangerous. The bishop is hanging. Okay, whatever. That is a very complicated position. Let me go back. It's also great with chess eval that in the real board, if you use it to analyze the games and you are deep through some variation, then you are kind of how to get back. I need to start all over again, or how do I get to that position? But here you can just see it and immediately make it on the board. It even helps you with some indicators. I like that a lot. So once again, knight takes e5. Now I take with the queen. It takes with the queen. That's the right thing to do. Rook takes, and this position seems to be great. Yeah, because f4 and e5, that's also something I was worried about. Takes. Okay, now it's not that bad. I have rook g7, and I have some tricks, and it's a little bit of advantage for white. Yeah, if those pawns are going forward, that would be really huge trouble for black. But apparently I can still fight against it with some. No, I cannot. King goes to h1. This rook goes to e7, then there is e5. Yeah, I would be pretty scared in such a position. I mean, those pawns are just moving and moving forward. How do you even stop it? Okay, there is some trick with knight f6. Let's stop this crazy variation here, and let's go back to the game and see what actually happened, because what happened in the game is amazing, very complicated. King g2. And here I played the move knight h7. My opponent played queen to c1, kind of trying to connect the queen to the attack. And that is the first moment in the game when it actually became better for me, and I should have taken advantage of that. I did play the move queen to f6, because I thought I need to use this f-file, because it's weak there. Queen goes to e3. And then I connected my rook. Yeah, I didn't know whether I should play rook f8 or rook f7. I ended up playing rook f7 because I thought that makes a little bit more sense, that my rook is still there protecting, and rook on f7, yeah, feels good. Knight d2 has been played. And here was kind of a very complicated moment for me in the game. I was definitely feeling that I have the initiative. I mean, even before I thought the position is absolutely fine for me when it was +2. Here it's objectively better for black, so you can imagine how optimistic I was. But I wasn't sure how I should play it. I did play the move g4, that it feels to be the right one. So I wanted, of course, to connect my knight to the attack. I wanted to get the better of my opponent in this king side, because I still have so many, basically all of my pieces are taking part, whereas this stupid rook on a6, it's just not taking part in the game. So I thought, well, I basically have an entire extra rook, not even mention the fact that that bishop on d3 is absolutely stupid. So I thought that must mean something. So I played g4, my opponent played f3. And what do I do here? Yeah, apparently here is the moment where I made my first mistake. Should I have played knight to g5? And I definitely thought about it, but my problem was that he can just play rook f1. And then what do I do afterwards? Queen to h6, that is not the move I was calculating. I don't understand what the point of it. Just f takes g. Okay, just get away from the f-file. Yeah, that is the point. That if the h-file is going to be opened, of course, queen h3 would be a horrible threat there. Then I want to connect my rooks to the f-file. But I was worried in some positions like that of the move f4. Then, yeah, I thought my knight is hanging. If I exchange that, then those pawns are going forward once again. But the engine says you're very stupid, human, because knight h3 is just winning the game immediately. Yeah, here the queen on h6 is perfect because it's blocking that pawn, it's pinning it, and the next move I'm gonna just win it. And then, of course, it's completely crushing. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense actually. You need to go forward. If you have started the attack, you need to proceed with it. You need to be as active as possible. And what I did instead rather helped him to activate his pieces, and that is my mistake. Because I played here the move G takes F, and then he took with the knight, and that knight suddenly is a very active piece. It helps in the defense, and then it would go forward with knight h4 and I don't know, knight f5, something like that, and then suddenly it's not that clear anymore. See that it's still better. So my idea was to play rook g7. Let's see what happened here. He played rook to h1. Yeah, that's actually not that huge of an advantage anymore. And here I was very confused in terms of what I should play. Initially, I thought about this move queen g6. Then this knight goes to h4. That seemed like a very straightforward variation for me. I play queen g4, and my opponent plays bishop e2. And I thought initially, okay, everything is good. I just take the pawn. And if he takes, then we have this endgame. I'm attacking the g3 pawn. I have just one pawn, but you see that it's completely winning for white here thanks to this move knight f5. And I have seen it because I was calculating my moves. Never make a move without thinking what your opponent can do, without really calculating the variations. And so here the problem is h5 pawn is hanging. Yes, it's +3, it's completely winning for white. It's going to be taken, then there is d5 pawn going forward, the bishop is becoming very strong, the knight is incredibly active, the a7 pawn is still a huge weakness, and that is a huge problem for my rook. So this position is basically collapsing for black. So here after rook to h1, I have played queen f7 instead, and that is a move back, that is a passive move. You should basically never try to go back if that's possible. Yeah, I saw that my opponent has this queen h6 opportunity, and then I planned to play knight f6 and probably queen g6, but he didn't do that. Instead, played something else here, queen to f7, move 36. He played bishop e2. Yeah, just activating that bishop. Suddenly, even the bishop, which previously was completely stupid, now has some idea. He attacks the h5 pawn. Well, not yet, but once the knight is going away. And it didn't feel comfortable anymore for me. And so I came up with this idea to play queen f4. It seemed to me like the endgame is very promising. The only drawback is that he is getting, like, he basically must take here. And you see that I was wrong about the evaluation of the endgame. Or maybe not. So the only problem is strategically he has two connected passers, and that is a very dangerous situation for me. But I thought that I tactically have so many ideas here, because I can take on g3 immediately with a check. I might jump with my knight either to e4 or f5. His king is in trouble. I mean, I thought I'm gonna win all of that. My initial variation was to play rook takes g3. Now king f4, king f2, then I have knight e4 with the tempo. I win a lot of time. But that still seems to be the right move. I thought he would go to f1 to avoid the check, and then I can even take on c4, I thought. And yeah, that all is still possible. Okay, rook h5, yeah, rook h5 I didn't see at all. I thought that he takes it back, and then I take it there, and even here it's not clear, because you see those connected passers? I thought that, okay, king goes somewhere, I wasn't sure where, then let's say I give a check, this king goes away, I take the pawn, and then suddenly there is this d6 check, and this pawn is incredibly strong here. Let me make the moves. Yeah, you see the position is completely winning for white, because a7 is going to be lost, and d6 is basically just winning the game. So I had some of the variations like that, that's why I didn't play the move rook to takes g3. So instead, what I decided to do is to move my knight, but I probably made the wrong choice. I've played knight f5, although the engine says it's around the same. I thought afterwards that knight e4 is more active opportunity, because I completely missed this resource for him bishop d3. I was very happy about the position except for the move bishop d3. And he played it, although you see that the engine says rook h5 is also completely fine. And then I should have basically forced a draw here, and I saw this line with knight takes e3 check. He goes to f2, I play knight g4 check, he goes to g2, and then my problem was that if I take on e5, then once again this pawn can be very strong, and h5 is going to be lost. Guess he can somehow take it immediately. Yeah, bishop h7 is a problem. Exactly, and here you see that's already winning for white. Because if I take it, he takes with the rook check, and if I take with the rook, then there is no pin anymore, and he could take there, take on f4, and that is not the end game I would like to get. I mean, suddenly I feel like I'm losing in so many variations if I'm not careful enough, if I'm not making the right move, rather than just winning as I thought before. So the situation has changed dramatically. So back to this position, I thought that knight e3, so in this variation, I have this move knight to e3 back, and basically that is forcing a draw. In this variation, instead of taking that pawn on e5, which is a mistake, I should just go back to e3. That is basically making a draw, and I should just live with that. Sometimes you cannot win, you have to accept the reality, and you should go for it. But I never wanted a draw. I thought that, well, I just had such a good position. I should outstreak him somehow and it should still work. But that was far away from reality. So what happened is, after he played bishop to g3, I took here the pawn on g3. I took it with knight because I thought I'm still threatening some discover checks. I'm protecting the h5 pawn. I'm attacking the rook. That should be good. But you see, this move is completely losing. That was like my biggest mistake in this game. And yeah, so it's pretty simple to understand why I did this mistake. Because I was focusing on trying to win the game, whereas the reality is that I should really fight for a draw. I should make sure that I don't lose it. And here you see after rook a1, the engine is screaming that the game is pretty much over. That was move 40. My opponent was in time trouble, so he played rook a1 after quite a lot of thought, well, according to the time he still had left. And yeah, I was rather hoping for knight for bishop takes h7. I don't know why. That is not a good move for white, but I somehow thought he's gonna play it. And then I thought I have a lot of prospects for my knight. But here the bishop is still there. Suddenly it's a very good piece. My knight on h7 is not really active, and those pawns are going forward. And yes, I'm a pawn up here, but it doesn't make any sense because those pawns are just not connected, are blocked, and I can't really make any use of it. So this position is suddenly very sad for me. So let's see what happened here. It's move 40. I played here knight f5 check because I thought I need to remaneuver it back to e3, at least to block that rook and to make some use of my knight. My opponent played d6 here, making use of his pawns. They're going forward, and I mean, good luck trying to stop that. You see that was actually a mistake. I had here a chance to play knight g5. I don't know, it's even move 42, so I got 30 minutes increments. Why I haven't found knight g5? That is, I thought that it doesn't work for me, because here, once my opponent takes, then this rook is no longer there, then a7 pawn is hanging, that pawn is going forward. I thought something like d7 is basically wins the game on the spot. But somehow it's not like that. Yeah, somehow rook d8 is still perfect, and then e6 I can still block it. Yeah, now I can just stop it even with my king. Okay, king to f8, then king goes to e7. My knight is conveniently blocking that rook. Then I'm just good to go. So he's grabbing the pawns here, and I play king e7. He's attacking yet another pawn, but apparently I don't care. 7, 7. I just play rook to g3. Yeah, that is tough to understand. I understand that bishop, there are all of the pawns on the light squares. That's why the bishop is absolutely not dangerous for me. It's basically useless there. But, I mean, I lose so many pawns, and it should work for me. Yeah, it's apparently just checkmate move. Checkmate in 4 moves. Yeah, because g2 is covered. Yeah, okay, and then I'm giving a checkmate. I haven't thought about it. I haven't found it. And I should have, because I really had a lot of time. So this knight g5, I feel like that is the decisive moment of the game. So the key takeaway here is always try to calculate the variations till the end. Not just a few moves and then think, oh my god, my opponent is gonna play d7, then e6, he's gonna have 2 connected passers, and I'm busted. No, try to understand whether the threat you think it's a threat, whether it's really dangerous for you, or you can do something about it. Because yeah, knight g5 was such a huge chance, and I played knight f8 instead. It somehow felt reasonable for me to stop those pawns with the knight, but that knight on f3, it's just blocking all of my ideas. I don't have any active ideas, and my knight on f8 is passive, and yeah, you see it's +3, huge advantage for white now. My opponent played the right move. It's move 43. And I'm just busted here. I had absolutely no chance afterwards. So I play rook d8. I wasn't that pessimistic yet, but I kind of had a feeling here that it's going into the wrong direction. My opponent played rook g1 because exchanging a pair of rooks is just perfect for him. I don't have time for knight c4 because he takes there with a check. Then I thought about sacrificing a piece, but somehow it didn't work for me in the variations. So I play knight g4. He plays rook a2. I mean, of course, he has a better way, but he's playing pretty strong at this point. He plays his rook on e2, just supporting those pawns, just controlling that second rank to avoid any knight f2 ideas. And that is the point where I thought for a long time, and I just understood that I have absolutely nothing here. Not a single active idea in the position. And strategically, of course, I'm much worse thanks to those connected passers, or because of those passers, and I'm in huge trouble. So I played the move knight to e3, but my opponent just exchanged the rooks, and my idea was to take with the knight, because once I do that, I thought I'm gonna play knight to f5, then I'm gonna play knight g3, well, that's a threat, then I'm gonna play rook g8, and create those checks and rook and two knights against the king. That might be very dangerous, but unfortunately all of my plans don't work because of this move knight g5. And once I saw it, I was so disappointed because I have absolutely no way to stop this knight f7 in a proper way. I have to lose a great number of time, then pawns are moving, and that's just automatically winning. So that didn't work for me, and I must have taken with the king, therefore, and yeah, that is a completely different thing. And here I was just completely disappointed with what happened. King h6. At this point, I was already in time trouble. My opponent took here on a7. I played knight f5, just, I don't know, hoping for a few tricks. Of course, I'd never resign, because why would you resign if you can still continue the game? But it's clear that it's very difficult for me to create something. I did manage to create a few tricks, so don't go away. That is still very instructive here. The knight went to d4, and I thought if he takes, I take it with the pawn. You see that the variation of the position doesn't give me any hope, but I thought that if I take with the pawn, it's gonna go forwards, and somehow I have a few pawns there. Maybe it's going to be Thompson, but my opponent unfortunately didn't give me such a chance. He played rook to f7 here, attacking that knight on f5, and attacking that pawn on f4, which is also very important, because he just wants to take with the knight. Knight takes, and then rook takes f4, enjoy an extra pawn. King g6 doesn't help, rook f6, king g7, and now he takes. Now was the last chance. Basically, I had a few seconds at this point whether I should play knight g3 check and take with the pawn, or take with the knight, but as you can see, it doesn't make any difference. It's just completely winning here. Yeah, knight takes d4, over here, just took it back. But even though it's +8 here, I managed to create a few tricks here in the end of the day, because we were both in time trouble. It still wasn't that simple. I played king to g6 here. He played king g2. I played king g5. Rook went back to f7. Then knight f5. Somehow I wanted to create those checks, those ideas, those threats for my opponent. He played king f2, trying to say, well, now you don't have any checks for me. And I said, well, you know what? I still have an idea to create a check for you. So I'm playing knight to h6. And I mean, I'm attacking the rook. If the rook goes away somewhere, then I have knight g4 and I'm winning the e5 pawn. That would be a dream for me. Unfortunately, my opponent just protects the pawn. I thought that rook g7 and e6 should be winning at some point. By the way, if you see, I also thought the idea of just taking the f5 knight, sacrificing an exchange, and then playing e6, that seems to be completely unstoppable. But I thought at least you need to play that to risk as white, and if you don't have a lot of time, that might be not that simple, because we both were in time trouble at this point. Here I still have a little bit of tricks. I should have played knight g4 first, attacking that pawn, but I played king f5, anticipating the move knight to g4 check, and then knight takes e5, and I was... at least, I mean, I don't have any time, you should understand that. I don't have time to understand that, well, he has so many ideas just to win me immediately, like king f3. But he played bishop to f3. That is something I missed, because, here knight g4 is just physically not possible. Then for a second I felt optimistic again, because I played knight g8, and I thought, well, the rook has to go somewhere. And then I take the e5 pawn, and that is not clear at all anymore. If, like, rook b7, that is a completely different game. You see that is just not losing anymore, probably. But unfortunately, my opponent here found the right move. I mean, he's an international master. At some point, he should find very strong moves, and he just took the h5 pawn, because now after knight x7, he takes with the pawn and he promotes the queen. I have to give up my rook, and that is game over. So what happened here is I just made a few moves, rook a8. At least if my king would be on f4, I would be having a dream for some checkmating ideas, although that is also not possible. Then after takes, it's so unfortunate for me that I cannot take the pawn on e5, because he's playing d7. I have absolutely no way to stop the pawn. So I played king e6, and I'm 2 pawns down, but it's even worse than that, because my knight is not getting away. If at least my knight would be somewhere on d4, I don't know, I can dream about something. But this way, it just plays that, and then the knight cannot go away. Because if I play knight f5, he has bishop f7 or bishop d7, exchanging those pieces. And then after knight g8, he played the move king g5, and I have absolutely no moves with my knight. So here I finally resigned, because there is absolutely no way for me to continue the game. Wow, that was a really long video. Congratulations that you have made it, and thank you very much for being with me this long. I hope you enjoyed it, because I have shared the entire decision-making process throughout the real tournament game, so you can learn from my mistakes and never repeat it in your own games. If you really want to skyrocket your chess in the next 10 days, there is a huge discount on my 10-day opening master course, where you get more than 10 openings at the price of one. You build a complete holistic and opening repertoire that is gonna serve you for basically many years to come. I sincerely recommend you take a look at the website, because there are free tutorials. Even if you don't want to buy the course, you can just enjoy that free tutorials and improve your chess. If you are, though, indeed interested in buying the course, I definitely recommend you take a look at it, because there is still a huge sale that you can take advantage of. Now, in this video, you can take a look at the day number 1 of my Journey to Grandmaster series, where I explain all of my plans, all of the upcoming tournaments, and how this entire journey is gonna work. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely take a look. It's going to be very inspiring for you.